Hey brother, today in this video I'm going to be talking about my top 3 reasons why our mental health is just shocking. The worst it's ever been and only getting worse. What is going wrong? As a counsellor, I work with and talk to a lot of guys that are struggling, and from my experience, I've come up with the top 3 biggest reasons. Obviously very broad, there's a lot of reasons, but these top 3 reasons are quite broad and it's going to give you a really good understanding, potentially where you're at, where some of your mates are at, or if you're not a male and you're wanting to support other males, what you might be able to do to help. So number 1 is the fact that we live in a toxic culture. This culture that we're in literally breeds issues. It breeds disconnection, it breeds isolation, it breeds inauthenticity, it breeds judgment, it breeds all of the things that are harmful to our health and our mental health. So just from the base layer, we're already trying to work on ourselves, work on our mental health through this toxic culture, and especially in Australia, these kind of things are very prevalent. Please refer to Gabor Mate and Daniel Mate's new book, The Myth of Normal. That is a great outline, and that's mainly in like America and Canada, but it's worldwide in the Western culture, mainly where we literally live in a toxic culture that pretty much creates and breeds disconnection, and essentially which is trauma. So having to negotiate that, and how does that play out realistically? For example, just the amount of money that is spent government-wide on certain things, and how the mental health industry is very sadly far too underfunded, and the funding is kind of decreasing over the last year as I've witnessed it, working in the mental health industry as a counsellor. It's getting more expensive to access counselling and therapy. There's less government support, and this is only just adding to the issue, which I'm really passionate about, making counselling and therapy affordable, because it's really inaccessible for so many people, and it was inaccessible for me for a while. But the way we can relate and connect and learn through the internet is breaking a lot of those amazing barriers. And I reckon this is one of the huge things that we can do personally to learn, self-educate, things that I might learn and benefit from in a counseling session, but I can actually watch a video, apply these things to myself, ask these same questions to myself as I'm learning through someone talking, just like I've done with heaps of other really awesome people that I've learnt through YouTube and other means. So knowing that we're already in a toxic culture, it really helps to take a bit of that blame off ourselves. Not that we shouldn't be fully 100% responsible for our own lives, which we are, but there are these factors that are making things quite hard. And not even to get into, it's a whole nother topic for a whole nother video about the culture around that men are living in, the toxic masculinity, and the fact that we don't have healthy role models. And for example, Jordan Peterson, in my opinion, is a really healthy role model, but he's pretty, not majorly, but like he's cancelled quite a lot, and his opinions seem to be, extreme. And then we have role models like Andrew Tate and all these other things, and especially for young guys, that's who they look to. I worked in schools and ran mental health programs, and they would talk to him and they would ask me about what I think of Andrew Tate. And it's an offshoot of social media and that toxic culture that we live in. It's fake. He's has a facade which is his selling point, And obviously, I don't know the guy. This is my answer I used to give the kids. I don't know the guy. He seems like, I can't make a proper judgment from social media, and we can't make a proper judgment because people aren't authentic on there, and we're only seeing a little slither of who they actually are. So we need to be really aware and careful who we're actually listening to and who we're role modeling, because they influence us. What we listen to, what we watch, what we expose ourselves to influences us in many, many ways. And I used to try and talk to the kids about that, but they already had their mindset that he was a top G, and they thought I was a top G in the end. But again, it's really harmful because there is these really crappy role models out there, and we need to be able to distinguish what is a healthy role model and who to listen to. So that's my number one aspect. So number two would be becoming more personal. The number two biggest thing that creates an unhealthy mental health is our identification with our mind. What do I mean by that? Who we think we are and how I identify really goes into every area of my life. Who I think I am, my worth, my self-image, my personality, all of these things come into an equation, and that is my experience. My self-perception of my own mind and my experience, that's who I think I am. That's what identification with the mind means. It says, I have a thought, that thought is mine, I am the thought. So if I think I'm useless or unworthy, then that is my identity. And if I can't separate myself from that thought and view it from another perspective, and I am the thought, then I'm stuck. I'm right. If I think I'm unworthy, I'm unworthy because I think that thought is true. And even more than that, I think I am that thought. There's no separation. It's like we're fully blended with this idea of who we are, and thoughts come out of those ideas of who we think we are. And all of these filters that we go into the world, when we are in this viewer's perspective that we don't even know that we're the viewer viewing it, we are the thought, then any thought can take us out. Any experience that we have that someone judges us, and then obviously that's going to impact us so much. Like someone else's opinion on social media, like we're so vulnerable because whatever our thought is will be our experience. There's no separation. So if you kind of understand a little bit what I'm saying, you may have already a little bit of a separation to know that, oh yeah, I can see that I have thoughts, but am I those thoughts? Maybe I can experience a thought, because if you can experience a thought, then you're the one watching it. So there's a lot of amazing spiritual teachers. This is like the foundation level of a lot of Eastern traditions and Buddhism and Taoism and all of the isms, and there's amazing stuff to look into. But that really creates probably 95% of our suffering is identification with the mind. I think, therefore I am, and whatever I am is my experience, and we're just stuck. That's a prison, really. We're stuck in that until we can create some distance, until we can separate and view and unblend from the thought, from my experience, and I can witness my experience from a whole different, greater viewing vantage point. And that's a whole thing I really want to go into in very deep detail. but I'm just going to keep going until the last number 3, which is our relationship with ourselves. So along the same lines, but a little bit differently to number 2, our relationship with ourselves is how we view ourselves, again, similarly, but also how we relate to ourselves and what's our day-to-day relationship. Like, if, we get to hang out with our own mind, we're hanging out with ourselves all day, and is that a crappy place to be? Is that a judgmental place to be? Like, are we judging ourselves? Are we self-critical? Are we judging others unconsciously? Are we like looking at the worst through the day, and we're thinking about work, and our relationship with work is a reflection of our relationship with ourselves? So are we dreading work? Are we doubting ourselves that we're going to have a good day at work? Or all of these things come back to our relationship with ourselves. Are we supportive of ourselves? Like a best friend that would have this issue, then we'd support them, right? Your best friend's going through an issue, you'd support them, and I'm sure you'd have really awesome advice and you'd just be there for them. But do we do that for ourselves? Are we our own best friend? And this is this classical thing, but it really, really is deep. And when you start to like peel back a lot of the layers, you can start to see a lot of areas where we don't have a great relationship with ourselves. In fact, that we might dislike or even hate parts of ourselves. And all of those parts of us that we don't like, that is going to detrimentally cause a crappy life, a very low quality life, because we're just going to be going around with these parts of ourselves that we hate, that we dislike, and that goes into every area of our life. That goes into our relationships, that goes into work, that goes literally into everything. So being aware of our own relationship to ourselves, the parts of us that we love, the parts of us that we hate, the parts of us that we dislike, the parts of us that we don't really think twice about. All of these parts go into the equation of our own quality of our experience. So I want you to think about, I still am working on parts that I'm getting to know, and not, like I still might have shame around that I have these parts, or like I have these behaviors that I don't want to do anymore. But there's parts of me that still operate in that way, maybe unconsciously. Maybe there's a hidden reason why I'm doing it, like an unconscious reason that has its own benefits. There's always very, very valid reasons why we do what we do. We might not be aware of those reasons, but there is a reason why we do it. So if there's behavior that you do, like an addiction or whatever it is, procrastination, whatever, come up with any behavior that you don't like, that you still do, you can kind of be curious about what is the good intention behind that behavior. Am I avoiding something? Am I self-soothing? All of the above. There are these really good reasons why we do what we do. And that comes back to our relationship with ourselves. Do we, do a behavior that's like an addiction, and then after that behavior, do we beat ourselves up because we've done it again, and we said we weren't going to do that again, we were going to try and get to a week or whatever it is, and then we beat ourselves up, and then that creates more shame, so we want to go back into that behavior again. It just creates this cycle of judgment and relapse back into shame. And again, that is about our relationship with ourselves. So I hope this has been a little bit thought-provoking for you. I want to keep these videos just really authentic and unedited, and I just want to share and please let me know what you thought about what was said, and if you can reflect in any ways of how this is relevant for you. And I'm opening up I've got a few openings for my counselling practice, so click the link below if you're looking to get some affordable counselling, and I will see you in the next one.